Welcome to Strategies for Turbulent Times. Here's your co-host, Matthew Werner. Unfortunately, I do not have our main brain with us, but fortunately, I have this opportunity to speak with our special guest, Matt Boss, and we just spent a week together, or almost a week. Almost probably seems like a week, huh, there, Matt? As far as how much brain power it took to learn something new. But yes, thank you and welcome to the show, Matt. Just give the audience a real quick bio of Matthew. And it's funny because we have three Matthews. We have the guest, myself, and we have our Voice American Matthews. So if you ever say Matthew, Matthew, Matthew too many times, then love the name or something like that, right? Okay,
Yeah,
so Matthew, he's been a police officer with the Ocala Police Department since 1997. Kind of rings a bell since I'm a mid 90s type of guy as far as graduating and getting into real life, as we call it, or at least I call it. He has served as a patrol officer, field training officer, street crimes officer, drug agent, bicycle patrol officer, property crimes detective, and major crimes detective. In 2012, he was promoted to the rank of sergeant and was assigned to patrol, field training coordinator, resource development training, unified drug enforcement strike team, high intensity drug trafficking area sergeant. And the year prior to, he was promoted to the rank of lieutenant and assigned as a patrol watch commander. Maddie, you've had a what a tremendous career. I mean, talk about a lot of different titles, a lot of different sincerities. Just I can't wait to pick your brain on this. So Matthew is currently assigned to oversee the technical services section, i.e., the evidence and forensics, for his agency. And Lieutenant Boss holds a bachelor's degree in criminology from St. Leo University and a master's degree in Homeland Security from AMU, American Military University. He also holds, and I'm just going to keep on reading here. I know everybody's like, holy cow, how does this guy have enough time in his day? He also holds a master's degree in social work from Florida State University, FSU. Um, He's a proud graduate of the Florida Leadership Academy in Class 31 and the Senior Leadership Program, Class 26. Uh, and if that's not enough for y'all to understand and to swallow and to absorb, he's also the current president of the Southeastern Field Training Officer Association, or FTO Association. So, Matt, welcome to the show, and I can't wait to hear about your strategies and some of the turbulent times that you gotten through. But welcome to the show.
thank you for having me. It's always difficult to hear, about yourself. You know, Very humble guy. So yeah, those accolades, it's gotten me to where I'm at today. So I'm very blessed, very humble to have experienced all those things and be in the position where I'm at.
You know, Maddie, is it okay that I call you Maddie?
You can call me whatever you want, just not late for dinner.
It just rolls off the tongue, and I will not call you late for dinner. Hopefully, we get to have dinner with you and anybody else that you want to bring along next time we're up there in Ocala. That'd be great. So, Maddie, just hearing how humble you are, um, I I personally understand that thought process because it's like if I can do it, anybody can do it, right? It's like if I can figure it out, anybody can figure it out. Whether you're throwing your carcass out of a plane, skydiving, trying to figure it out, and you can figure it out, or working with some high risk, high crimes individuals that you don't know who has your back. I mean, that's a lot of stress throughout a career. And so, if you wouldn't mind sharing with the audience here, Matt, How did you get, like, how was your growing up? How was your earlier years, and how'd you get into law enforcement?
So I was born up in Michigan, but when I was 7, actually, my family and I moved to the Florida Keys. So I grew up on a chain of islands that were pretty isolated, and over 100 bridges to connect to the mainland. So we were pretty isolated down there, and a lot of times had to figure stuff out ourselves. Um, you know, Mid '80s, early '90s, hurricanes coming through. We're there. It was just us. So um, you know, basically just taking care of ourselves, making sure our family and our friends and our neighbors, that we all took care of each other. So very tight knit community, which helped lead me into growing up the way that I did. My stepfather was in law enforcement, so that's kind of where I started, piquing an interest in this career. And then in high school, there was a deputy that showed up who was looking to recruit police explorers. So the Explorer program at the time was part of the Boy Scouts, and it basically, learning the career. And him and I just bonded really quick. And believe it or not, his name is Matt also. So I think there's something with that name. But him and I have been long lost friends forever. The longest friend, he's still on the job, over 30 years later. We stay in contact, bounce ideas off of each other. And he's been my mentor this whole career. So I'm very thankful for him.
Yeah, I think that's it's pretty funny that you bring that name up again. That was unintentional that I brought that up at the beginning of the show, but another great friend that Matt had, very inspirational into what you're doing. And what I grabbed from you sharing this is the understanding and the visual, or just the vision of being a strong community. Did I get that right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And having those positive early on influences, you know, it, the adage of, it takes a village to raise. So knowing who your community is, knowing who you can rely on, times of trouble or turbulent times, who are you going to lean on, and your community comes through for you.
Do you have any specific mentor or person that you looked up to, and you, as a young adult, you're not, well, young adult, but also prior to, um, that you really felt strong about, especially you can look now back how many years, so many years, and say, you know what, this person really impacted me.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Matt's been there with me through a lot of things. I've been there for him for a lot of things. I have an older brother. Um, he just retired this past fall after 27-year military career. So, listening to him and his stories, and being able to bounce ideas off of him, following him around the world, to where his career has taken him. Um, and then, yeah, once I get started here at the police department, those initial field training officers that I had, just had that big giant influence on me to shape my career.
That's great. So your family was in law enforcement prior to then, huh?
Yes, sir. My stepdad was in work for the sheriff's office down in the Keys, 30 plus years until he retired. So that's where my real interest in this profession came from.
Well, I love it because the closeness of this type of environment, tropical environment, and the criticality of respect and community involvement, I think is really what I see and have seen from the state of Florida since I've been here for about 2 years now, and it's really fascinating on the support of the badge, on the support of those that are um, responsible, but also have the heart to take care and want to make sure that the community is whole. I think that's so impactful that you share that. I mean, Not to say that Michigan's not, but it's the amount of storms and the vulnerability down here is it's unlike anybody else or anywhere else that you can actually imagine. So I love that you brought that up. Now, Maddie, before we get into it here, as far as like some of the turbulent times you had, anything else you want to share as far as just thoughts that you have on a successful career? Just still you are still in it to win it, and I want to pick your brain on what is keeping you going.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, adding on to the community aspect, you look back into the 1800s, and Sir Robert Peel, who was the founder of the modern day policing, and he had his Peelian principles, and one of them being the public is the police, and the police is the public. So law enforcement, regardless if you're local, state, federal, tribal, you can't do it by yourself. You need the public. You need the public's help. And then you are also the public, right? So when we have these hurricanes that come through or natural disasters, we're impacted personally just as much as the rest of the public. So how we support ourselves, how the community supports us, all that plays into a fact into the police are the public and the public are the police.
Absolutely, and I think that's hard for a lot of people to grasp. Um, and I don't want to get too much off on a tangent here, but it's a mental mindset on do you want to live in a safe, secure environment, or are you going to be a part of the unsafe and unsecure environment? And are you against, or not even against, but just uneducated on not understanding what a safe and secure environment is and the challenges that law enforcement professionals like yourself have, each and every day, waking up, going in there, seeing the same things. Some of the things I picked up, um, recently, but over time here as well, is you see the same things happening to the same people. And what have you taken away on any kind of words of advice, whether it's anybody in uniform or anybody else listening to this, on the mental model to be successful?
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with someone recently about that, and how generationally we're starting to see the same cycle, either of crime, of mental health, and the names that are being tossed around now. Now they're the junior, now they're the third. So we're seeing the generational cycles there too. So how do you break that? How do you break those generational cycles? Awareness is one of the biggest things. If you're not aware of what the causation is or what the issues are, then how then can you provide coping mechanisms, and then education? Even seeing a deputy in my school, instead of it, oh, he's here to find somebody to get him in trouble, walking up to him and having a conversation and finding out it's a positive conversation. So I think that's the kind of mindset is, are we going into things, with the negative thoughts, or are we going into something with a positive thoughts? That anxiety thing is a big issue with people. And, unfortunately, how your body responds to anxiety is also the same way as your body responds to excitement. So it can be very confusing to people, of, why their body is giving them these signs. Is it for good or is it for bad?
I love that. And I mean, the positivity, like you're talking about, whether it's how the body responds to adrenaline on the excitement, whether it's positive or negative. And, we can talk all day long as far as use stress and de-stress. But I love how you just eloquently spoken about it's really policing with the community by policing the community. And those that are in the community, how do they feel? Are they being policed with, or are they being policed to? And I love that you bring those out, Maddie. And we're going to take a short break here. Um, Welcome to Strategies for Turbulent Times, and hopefully everybody's having a great, great, great week. Easter's coming up here soon, so enjoy the spring uh, with or without the allergies. So um, we'll be back soon. Welcome back to Strategies for Turbulent Times. We have our special guest Matthew Boss here, and what a career! I mean, he has almost 30 years. I mean, I look at it as if I was still active duty, and what would I be feeling right now and thinking right now, still being faced with the challenges each day, behind the badge or in uniform. And before we went to the break, Matthew was talking about, policing with the community, how important that is, and how impactful that is. I can share a lot of stories I've heard from other agencies around the nation and globe, um, of not necessarily carrying around like you're bulletproof and you can take care of anything. It's more of being normal and being with the community. Like, okay, hey, this is humanizing the badge. This is humanizing the uniform. We don't just have rights to weapons release. Um, unbeknownst to a lot of people that aren't educated or just refuse to hear that. So with almost 30 years there, Matthew, um, I'm sure you have a plethora, but is there any time in your career or life that you would like to share with the audience, especially understanding emotional intelligence and how you got through that, how you came on the back end, whether it's positive or negative? But yeah, if you would like to share that, it'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So a couple things I could share. Obviously in your career, you want to make the most of it. You want to uh, aspire to be the best you can. You want to move up the ranks and join all the specialty teams that you can. So yeah, I've been fortunate in my career, but there's hard work that goes involved in all that. This isn't nothing was handed to me, given to me. Integrity is intact. So there was a time, every time promotion comes around, people are always, what do I got to do to get promoted? And you just got to let your work stand for itself. And, there were times where, yeah, I was passed over for a promotion, and, it bums you out a little bit. You get, upset. Why did somebody, get promoted over me? But then, had I gotten promoted early on when I first applied, all of those things that a lot of those things that you read off, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do. And all of that stuff helped me in the future. I wouldn't have been a homicide detective had I got promoted early on. I wouldn't have been able to, go to some of the training schools that I've gone to because of that. So looking, until later on, that's when you can figure out, things were done for a reason, whether it's a higher calling or whatever that helps shape you to the way that you are. So, a blessing for not getting promoted, even though I wanted to be, it really helped shape, who I was in the future. And then, as I coach people and as I mentor people later on who get passed over for promotion, being able to share my experiences or keep them uplifted to know that they can, keep working, hard at what they're doing, and that there's always tomorrow.
So when you're talking about consistency of actions, which I believe you're talking about, and we don't understand that when we are growing and learning and traveling, much as we do in the armed forces, but also experiencing so much with law enforcement. To move forward with that, whether like you said, it's a blessing from God that I didn't get promoted because I wasn't ready yet, or it was a understanding of a consistency of actions. Could you talk a little bit about the consistency on anybody that's still moving up, that's frustrated, that's very uh, challenged with their own positivity, which we always learn to negativity, understanding our brain and survivability, we can easily come to the negativity. Is there any things you can share as far as consistency of actions, but being in a positive mindset to shrug it off, let it behind you, and move forward?
Yeah, I mean, how you respond to adversity, I mean, that almost proves more of who you are than before, the opportunity. We're never going to get everything that we want, but how you respond afterwards, how you respond after you say no, that's going to show more of your true character than, if everything is just given to you. So, almost like raising kids, right? You want to give them the world, you want to give them everything that they ask for, but you know that that's not going to help them grow, to be a successful, life, and be able to, understand the ups and downs of life. So yeah, I think that, having that, yeah, you can get upset, but you can't let that, hold you back or stymie your abilities or your performance, because that's what, now as a supervisor, I look at that more than I do when I approve things. I look at how you respond when things are denied, to see, what your true character really is.
I love that. And, we're kind of getting to the point of planting seeds. And how was our seed planted and how was it groomed, unbeknownst to us? Is there any stories that you have with your almost 3 decades that you can talk about the aha moment when you looked back and said, "Oh crap, I was so frustrated. I said, F you to this and F you to that, and I don't want to do this anymore. Everybody is going to hell in a handbasket, or just I've done everything as far as what makes sense to me." Is there any time that you can share that the aha moment for you?
Yeah, it's interesting watching society ebb and flow throughout 27 years. I was working during a 9/11, and so the police were the heroes and firefighters were the heroes, and I couldn't buy my own meal for a month after that happened. People were giving me stuff, and people were putting things in my mailbox and gift cards and thank you cards and everything. And then 10, 15 years later, it just totally reversed. And the defund the police sentiment, and attacks on police and ambushes and those sort of things. It's curious on how society forgets the past. And we I'm sure you've studied it too. Those that forget the past tend to repeat it. So being a student of history, and being a student of society, learning what makes societies tick, I think helps keep my mind, clear and focused on, what my goals are, what my outcome is, how I fit in this whole cog of a wheel of the criminal justice system, of our community, of our agency. And I think that, because of staying studious, I think is what helps me. It keeps my brain fresh. It doesn't let my brain stagnant. That I'm always willing to learn a new thing. Teaching an old dog new tricks. I don't want to say it, but I guess I'm the old dog now. So even coming into this class, and learning about emotional intelligence, I wouldn't have thought of that 10, 15 years ago. But if it's here to benefit me, great. If it doesn't benefit me, then I would have never known had I not gone through this class.
Well, I appreciate that there, Maddie. And you know, one of the things that rings true with me, and when I first met you, you stated that words mean something, and they absolutely do. I know it's hard for a lot of people to understand unless you get through that whole progress or process of I'll use a word for lack of anything better, but maturity inside of leadership and understanding how impactful words are. And I thought that that was very impressive, holding this last class on EI with Kathy, and just, you know, that's what you write off of. Now, on a separate page, before we go into the next break, anything you want to share as far as just letting those words go and just allowing people to be who they are?
Yeah, so there comes a time when people need to either vent, get things off their chest, and sometimes either being a great coach, a great mentor, great friend, you're just there to sit in the moment and just be present with someone. A lot of times, people don't need you. They don't need your advice. They don't need your counsel. They just need you to be with them, be present with them, and let them get whatever it is off their chest. A lot of times that's all that is needed. There are no magic words out there. There's no way to tell somebody that they can't feel a certain way or they shouldn't feel a certain way. That's who that person is. And they need to be validated that those feelings matter. I remember being on a scene, a domestic violence scene, and the wife was scared of the husband, and the husband was saying, "Oh, she shouldn't feel that way." It's like, how can you tell your wife how she should or should not feel. That's for her to decide, not for you. So, same thing goes through with, subordinates and supervisors and peers. And, a lot of times you're just a sounding board. You're just someone just to listen and be present.
So with that said, what advice would you give to those that are, they've given it their all, they've been through all the physical regiments, they've been through all the mental regimen, as far as trying to make it through selection. What would you give to those, or what kind of real quick advice would you give to anybody that thinks I'm wearing this uniform now and I'm responsible for your protection? So why am I listening to you? I don't know because I have the right answer. What helped you throughout your career get through those processes? Because we all grow up and we're young. Um, you know, rightfully so, we're dumb because we think that we know everything. We've been through high school, been through all the adolescent and the grade years. And now all of a sudden we got our first biggest selection after 12 years of getting through school. Now we think we own the world, right? And that's what we're told. What any advice that you'd give to somebody that's going through that? And I'm going to park that thought, but also after you are inside of an organization, inside of a profession for so many years, you can get kind of that same mindset. So anything for the audience here that tips, tricks, whether it's physical fitness, mental fitness, anything real quick.
Yeah, so kind of goes back to the humility part, of not forgetting where you came from. Don't be so far removed that you either forget or lose track of the work that's actually being done. The whatever you want to call them, the frontline workers, the first responders, the grunts, making sure that you're still connected to them and you're still listening to them and what their needs are. Once you get, middle of your career, it's easy to lose sight of your purpose. If you continue to listen to the people doing the work, then as long as you've prepared them, then you'll be listening to what the community's needs are and what the administration's needs are. So staying connected and not losing sight of where you came from, I think, is important for you right in that middle range of your career.
I love it. The not losing sight of where we come from, but also the foundation that got us to where we're at. And foundations can be laid in multiple ways, whether it's how you were brought up, or just tips and tricks and ways that you've learned throughout your career to start a new foundation as far as ethos and what are your morals. And we're constantly being the new guy or the FNG, right? So, but the reality is we all bleed red, and to not allow the mentality of seeking something that probably is not true, or a lifestyle that probably is not true. It's critical. It's about appreciating, like I think you're saying there, Matthew, where we come from and what we have. But after break, we're going to go to a quick break here. But after break, if you don't mind, let's get into a little bit more of maturity and understanding things. And like we're talking about, it's yes, you respect and you love, and you look back and you say, what, thank God I had the foundation. What's next for the listeners, whether it's retirement. Oh wow, you guys start a whole new foundation. What do you think about that? So we're gonna
That's
take a we're gonna I'm watching you here and you're like, oh man, I don't even want to think about it. But we are going to take a quick break, and you're listening to Strategies for Turbulent Times, and hope everybody's doing well. Welcome back to Strategies for Turbulent Times. Like a lot of things in life, I am actually in a turbulent time. Not so big, but somewhat big. I don't have my brain next to me, my co um, uh, guest here, but we're getting through this, aren't we, there, Maddie?
Yeah, yeah, I think we're doing well.
All right, brother. So before we went to break, Matt was talking about a lot of things. And when it comes down to communication, on the challenges each day, whether we're new, whether we're old, whether we're processing, the power of communication and how challenging that is, especially when you don't know, you have to be reactive to who's communicating to you. It's so challenging. And as we're talking about the climate inside of an organization or a community, that's what the C stands for is communication, whether it's verbal or nonverbal, and the challenges behind that. And also, how does communication relay into the L of climate, which is leadership? What I've learned, not just from a hierarchical perspective, which leadership is from the top down, but leadership can also be from the bottom up. And I think that that's critical. I mean, we look at young kids, like, what kind of leadership do you have? Well, look at that young kid that actually had the cojones or the backbone of, or the shoulders and the heart to actually communicate what's going on. I mean, that's some kind of leadership there, no matter what the age they are. And that can be from the bottom up too. And that's going back to communicating and policing with the community to respect and to understand exactly what's coming in. Now, Matt was talking a little bit about just absorbing so much information and getting through a career. And we spoke about this last week as far as getting through that career successfully, but it's really just ending that race, successfully. Maddie, would you have any points of advice, anything for the audience to grasp onto on how to get through the challenges of that last final couple of laps of thinking, well, I would have planned a lot earlier. What does that planning look like? But also any other tips that you have?
Yeah, you're asking to like for aha moments. Listen to your podcast last week with your guest with Ken last week. Yeah, I was working the night of his shooting incident, and I didn't put two and two together until listening to your podcast. So, when I got that phone call, I was the watch commander on duty, so in charge of the whole police department in the middle of the night that night, and got that phone call from the county sheriff's office watch commander. Hey, we just had a deputy shot. We need assistance. So, to me, that just humanized everything. And that's all I knew. So, of course, I'm thinking the worst case scenario. So, pulling resources and providing assistance and, making sure that we're doing whatever we can to find the bad guy and consoling the deputy and, just giving whatever support that we can. It really opens your eyes that there is an endpoint. Whether it's a career, a life, there is an endpoint. So, yeah, when do you start thinking about that endpoint? You never want, you never really want anything to end. But we all know, with life, there is a birth and a death. So, with a career, there is an employment and a separation of employment. So when do you start planning that? As I sit here 27 years later, I wish I would have begun planning that on day one.
Amen, brother.
Because it's so scary now. Unfortunately, a lot of officers, this becomes their identity. So once that identity is stripped away, what takes its spot? What fulfills all those those days and those hours? I got a buddy of mine who's been retired now for 5 years, and every time he hears a siren, he calls me and asks me what's going on. As I have no idea. So, but it's just, that's just been so ingrained, and he's trying to fill a void that's there. Um, but you know, the planning part, when you talk about retirement and your end of your career, you know, there's so many things that go into that, whether it's financial or wellness or, you know, your social network. All of these things are now something you never had to think about before when you were still in your career. So planning, even if your employer doesn't provide that for you, you know, try to find a financial planner or wealth management, life coaches, people that have gone through it before. Learn from other people's mistakes or successes, to get yourself in the best possible situation for that end point that will come for every one of us.
I love that, Maddie. And, how you're speaking about worst case responses, being put in that position and you were, I'll take the opportunity to say that, you're pretty confident that you had the ball and you're able to make decisions, even though how alerting it was with Kenny's, when he got shot. Um, Now take yourself out of that realm and the agencies to the left, like you're getting into, and how is your brain going to be operating? Which that's what we like to talk about on this show, as well as with Dr. Kathy Greenberg, myself, and other experts on neuroscience and just understanding our brains better because of the depression, the isolation, the not understanding. Not that we're dumb. It's just we don't understand why is our brain saying, "Oh, I'm not a part of that alert. Oh, I'm not understanding what's going on in my new position or my new community." You mentioned something, a little bit about now you're retired. You might move to another, everybody's like, especially myself in uniform with the military, it's like, oh, I'm used to moving, I'm moving, and I can, at a young career, it's like, yeah, the military will take care of you to move you from point A to point B, and you figure it out. There's some struggles, some challenges. But then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, okay, I'm moving to point X. And now I had a natural disaster hit me, and I don't know the community that well. I have an idea on what and how they're going to respond, but I really don't. I mean, we have to be honest with ourselves. And that's where that true humbleness comes in on saying, okay, Sarge, Lieutenant, Chief, Captain, I'm going to take the equation because now I have to really think on my toes. I have to really think about what people go through. And I think that's a great thing, especially for us in uniform, because we go through a career and we are protected. We know we're going to get that paycheck. There's a government behind us. There's people that are in place that we know it's going to happen. Medical, holy cow. Well, let's talk about medical for a second here, or let's not, because it gets very complicated. Um, and it's just something that we really don't look at often because we are protected. And you're talking about the methodical processing of giving those that are coming after us, that are next in line, to actually get a process mentally that the badge, the uniform, badge never goes away. We all will carry with us that rank, that position, those experiences. But how can we actually process, and what are some of your pointers to for those to move forward into the mental mindset of, guess what? You're retired. Thank you for your service. What's your next chapter? What's your next foundation?
Yeah, one of the things that I learned in my graduate school internship is clarity of mind. And if you don't have clarity of mind, then you're not taking care of yourself. And then if you're not taking care of yourself, how are you taking you? Then you cannot take care of anyone else. So once you have clarity of mind, then that affords you the opportunity to be able to help others, help your family, support your community, support fellow retirees. But if you flood yourself with negative emotions or negative substances, or not becoming familiar and taking those opportunities to learn your new communities, then you're not going to be of help, and you may become a hindrance at that point. We definitely don't like to be saved ourselves. We would rather be the rescuer than the rescuee. So without that clarity of mind, you could be getting in your own way, and resources could be diverted to come to you when they're needed elsewhere. That planning process of retirement, of all those things that you are going to need once you retire, that helps your clarity of mind, knowing that those things are taken care of, and you don't wait. You can't wait till something happens and then go back and fix something. If it, the Gordon Graham has a saying, if it's predictable, it's preventable, right? If we're predicting a hurricane come in a certain area, we can prevent loss of life by evacuations. Having that mindset in place, because retirement is another, whole nother realm of life, and brings with it all of those other challenges.
And I appreciate that, Maddie. I mean, just giving the shout out to those that are still doing their best to help the next generations. And for those next generations, just reach out. I mean, we're all human. It's not like, we're different. It's just we want to share like we are here on you know, what we've experienced. And I think all too often is the commonality of, and you mentioned from a I forget what the gentleman's name was, but rescuer versus rescue. Think about this. How do you communicate with your kids? Are you okay because they're so young that they actually gave you advice and you're like, all right, cool, we'll play silly. Or are you, if your wife or spouse said the same thing to you, would you respond the same way? That's a challenge. That's a challenge for myself. I'm still working through it because going throughout decades of being a rescuer, and I wouldn't even call it rescuer because who am I? It's about just doing every damn thing I can to make something happen, and to have that foresight, that foreseeable future to set up things prior to, whether it's training, to help the next individual, whether it's hey, we're going to plan for a vacation for a family, and you try to make sure that everything's kosher and everybody's having a good time. And it's that foreseeable future that you don't really have the opportunity to do, that we are fortunate to have throughout a career. And now you have to set that new foundation without a foreseeable future. You can't be the rescuer, but you constantly try to hold on to that peanut. you know you try to constantly just be like that rescuer. So when you're being told something, yeah, it's okay, you can get through it, you can have a calm head, you can go through all the mental processes of professionalism that we went through. But then if one adds to another to another to another, then you can quickly just be like, what the crap, like where am I at as a person, and how did I allow this to get to it? So, any last minute comments before we cut for today?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking a lot about communication and all that, and yeah, we didn't really even get into generational differences and how that communicates. So yeah, knowing that we have this influence over the next group of humans that are growing up, whether it's our kids or whether it's the new officers, the new recruits that are coming through. So yeah, we have this giant influence. So then yeah, it's really a choice on our part of how do we influence that next generation, whether it's your own kids or new kids within your organization. So that's why I got associated with the Southeastern Field Training Officers Association and our conference that we have every year, seftoa.org, seftoa.org. We have this annual conference in May. This year it's in Chattanooga, and we have people come from all over the country to learn how to now influence the next generation of officer that's going to come up and be our backup tomorrow. It's going to be our chief in 10, 15 years. Could be the next officer that breaks a child trafficking case. We have that influence over others, and hopefully with clarity of mind, it's a positive influence.
Maddie, I can't wait to hear on how many years that this, uh, you know, your information, your wisdom, your experience has reached out to. And if you missed it, scftao.org,
TOA, SEFTOA,
TOA.
SEFTOA.org.
scftoa.org. Take a look at it. And I want to put a quick appreciation out to the National Command and Staff College, who we are co-partnered with, and getting this message out, because together we have it all, but alone we don't have it together. So we love you guys, and just remember, let that pride and ego go. Just, be yourself, and or try to be yourself, and you'll learn a lot, especially when you're under the pressure, as these fine men and women behind the badge are doing each day.